Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Secretary Wallace, welcome. I'm going to begin by just mentioning I'm going to submit a number of records or questions for the record on polar bears and sea otters in my state. I have a lot of questions for you and your team. I'm going to start, it's kind of a broken record for me in this committee, that my state, my officials, my people, my constituents, the native people of Alaska have so much knowledge about protecting our species, protecting our environment, building our economy. These are challenging issues, but my state's really, really good at it. You've been to Alaska, right?
Many times.
Pristine, beautiful, one of the most beautiful, environmentally protected, gorgeous places on the planet.
Right up there with Wyoming, sir.
No comment. But then you travel up the East Coast corridor on a train and you see a chemical environmental wasteland. And yet many of my colleagues, and I'm going to be a little partisan here because it's always coming from the Democrats, seem to always want to tell me and my state how to manage Alaska's environment. And then you take the train and you're like, holy crap, you're telling me how to manage my environment? Look at this, environmental wasteland. So we have it again. Just recently, 16 of my colleagues sent a letter, several letters, to the top 15 heads of the biggest banks in America, essentially saying, don't invest in Alaska's North Slope. So they lose a vote on opening ANWR, and now they're pressuring the banks not to invest in my state. Unprecedented. I've been here 5 years. Over 1/3 of the Democrats in the Senate sent a letter to some of the top bankers in America to further impoverish my constituents. Unprecedented. Now, a lot of times in this committee, I get steamed because when I see senators from Oregon or whatever, the Massachusetts, telling me how to run my state, it just makes me a little mad. I don't go to Delaware or Oregon and say, hey, do this or do that, you know? But it always seems to happen here. I'm beyond steamed on this one. I'm just disappointed. It's sad. It's sad. 1/3 of the Senate Democrats are telling the biggest banks in America, don't invest in this part of Alaska. So I'm going to send a letter to all these senators, just expressing my sadness and attaching, and I would like to submit it for the record, Mr. Chairman, a recent op-ed in the Wall Street Journal from the mayor of the North Slope Borough. Represents a lot of these people. He's a Nupiat leader, native leader. He's been in this part of Alaska for generations. It's entitled, Goldman Sachs to Alaska Natives Drop Dead. And it's all about how these ideas from my senators are impoverishing some of the poorest people in America, and they don't care. Because I guarantee the letter that was written by the 16 senators was from Extreme Environmental Group that they're probably going to do a lot of fundraising off of. But it's sad. So I mention that, Mr. Secretary, because right now you're developing an incidental take authorization for 2021 through 2026. I've had concerns about some of the issues that have been raised here, and what's happening is it looks like the model you are using, particularly as it relates to the polar bear, has not been validated by peer review, is reportedly based on a few recent papers that have not been peer reviewed. And what I want to get a commitment from you on is that your commitment is very important to me, that this is going to be a huge impact on my state and the economy and my constituents. It's essential that my constituents have a voice in this process. Because, by the way, they're some of the most knowledgeable people on the planet, more than your people, no offense, especially more than this recent paper that's not been peer-reviewed. Can you commit to me that you will include state and local stakeholders, including some of the people I just talked about, not only making the final decision on the incidental take, but on participating in the incidental take application for seismic work in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge right now? None of them have even been invited to be at the table. It's remarkable, and it's really upsetting. So can I get that firm commitment from you right now? I'm going to have a whole bunch of other issues. Similarly, on the sea otter in Southeast Alaska, you need additional data. We understand that, but we need to move on that too. And this is really frustrating to me, but it really hurts the people I represent. And with all due respect to my Senate colleagues here, I know a hell of a lot more about representing Alaska than they do. And in some ways, the people under your command. So can I get that commitment from you, Mr. Secretary? And perhaps you'd like to talk about this.
I do have a comment, Senator.
First, I need the commitment that you're going to include
we have a-
my
you have a complete commitment
experts,
for a
my knowledge.
total.
Right now, my state's telling me they're not involved.
You have a commitment for a total and transparent system on how we evaluate the ITR.
You're not answering my question.
Ask it again, please.
I need a commitment from you that the state of Alaska, with all its expertise and indigenous knowledge on issues like polar bears, will be at the table, not only on the ITR for 21 through 26, but the seismic program that's being looked at now, which I'm being told by state of Alaska officials, they're not being included. And I need a commitment also on peer review of this paper. Point Thompson was just developed in Alaska. I oversaw that. That's right next to ANWR. The impacts on polar bear denning was almost minimal or zero. These are experiences that you need to take into account. And right now, your people are not doing that. I need a commitment that you're going to work closely with Alaskan experts on all of this. I just need a yes.
You have that commitment, yes. And with another footnote, I met with your commissioner yesterday in my office and told her the same thing.
Thank you. And I will have many, many more questions for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.